We've been joining you live from right here in Philadelphia tonight because I just spent the day at a sprawling former prison here with 3 Democratic presidential candidates. It was at a forum about criminal justice and mass incarceration. You're looking at some of the shots inside right now. And this is unusual because each interview was conducted with moderators and audience questions by people who've served in prison or been directly impacted. That is obviously quite a major shift in how these issues are usually addressed and in who typically leads the discussion. So right now, we want to show you some of the highlights from the forum today.
Why was it important to you to come have dialogue with people who have served time, with family members who've been through this? Why is it important that these voices are part of how we pick the next president?
These are the leaders. This is a room of leaders who understand what is actually happening in the system and who know that if we are, again, if we're going to be true to our values and if we want healthy communities, if we want to be true to the values of redemption, we have to agree that the incarceration system of America is one of the greatest failures of public policy in our country.
I am surprised and angry. And this is a chance to have a conversation with formerly incarcerated people. And we have three candidates showing up? I'm sorry, that is unacceptable.
This country started with massive, deliberate, legalized injustice and racism.
America's criminal justice system has child separation policies. The goal should be healthy communities, because healthy communities are safe communities.
The way you get the right policy is to go to the community that's affected and get their experience, their wisdom.
So much of what has led to America's mass incarceration has been based on domestic wars. The war on drugs. That was a war on our own people.
You're talking about pushing back against what can be the malicious impact of profit industries here. What needs to happen, given your expertise in that field, so that people like you and your hedge fund don't make those investments in the first place?
And I realized this is just wrong. And so I sold it. And I've always felt like, boy, I was really dumb. I regret it. It was a mistake. And so I corrected it on my own.
We criminalize poverty. We criminalize people struggling with addiction. We criminalize people struggling with mental health.
So let me ask you guys a question. Is there anyone in this room who doesn't think Donald Trump should be impeached? Thank you.
I mean, if you want to talk about a threat to nation security, talk about Donald Trump.
That's true.
Preach. I know.
Freedom. It is the most sacrosanct value we profess in our country, liberty, freedom. And we are a nation that is violating those fundamental aspects.
It was my honor to co-moderate this discussion. And it's an important part of how we think as citizens about who should be president, that we actually were joined both on the stage and the co-moderation and in the audience questions by people who've been impacted by this. So often in our criminal justice system, as I said today at the forum, people are disappeared, they're silenced, and they're never heard from again. Today was a small part in changing that, and it was an honor to work with those individuals and hear from some of the candidates. So we wanted to share that with you. Hey, I'm Ari Melber from MSNBC. You can see more of our videos right here, or better yet, subscribe to our YouTube channel below. You could have been anywhere in the world, but you're here with us, and we appreciate that.